The top plane. Inherently, at least in my humble opinion, sort of the most challenging and difficult. It's tricky to determine if the angles are even angling towards each other, if they're converging or not, and if so, if they're converging the right amount. There's several things to do to help with that, and I will talk about a couple of those. So I know that this back of whatever box this is going to be aiming something like that. And I know that there's going to be this aiming something like that. I know that they're going to meet up, but it's hard to know, it's hard to tell when things start getting squished if they are actually parallel or if they're converging somewhat or diverging somewhat. One way to help with that is by sort of transforming this horizontal plane and 2-point perspective into a vertical plane with relative lines that are going to, extended relative lines that are going to help me see if I have it angled in the correct fashion or not. So this sort of extending a line to figure out other aspects of perspective is based on some very fun projective geometry stuff that hopefully isn't too scary, especially just a couple simple things and trying to. I'm going to look at this a little. What I'm going to look at is imagining this as its own little vertical plane temporarily, and I'm not looking at that. And it is a vertical plane with lines that are going away to the right. So these will need to jive up with the rest of the rah-rahs. But in the same fashion that I made sure that these were converging because I checked to make sure that this was longer than this, I'm going to do a similar sort of thing with this new little temporary plane. I'm going to make sure that this edge is shorter than this little reference edge, and indeed it is. So then I can be pretty confident that that line is at least going to converge someplace. Won't be for a long time, but that helps me greatly, and just sort of thinking, comparing this to this, and to find that once again all I did was extend this edge, and where it intersected I was thinking of that edge. One of the fun things about perspective is everything starts relating to everything else. It's just sort of figuring out how to translate, how to read it, which is, the part that's not something we're at all used to. I'm going to try the same thing with this other side. It's going to be a little bit longer and possibly trickier to see and to draw. Let me knock this guy back just a touch. It's not screaming too loud at me, but I don't want to lose that. So now I'm kind of looking at an imaginary, temporary, vertical plane that's interacting with it's on the La-La team. And this edge, I want to make sure is longer than that one, because I want to make sure that this line and the line that I'm going to draw here are converging. So once again, I extended this line like this, and hopefully this is not hurting your brain. If it is, oh well, take some Tylenol. Or get some water or something. But I'm going to sketch this. And there's ways to use this geometry that I'll get into eventually. Trying to decide how user-friendly it can be, or I can make it. But once again, if I just sort of extend this from this edge, and then I imagine a vertical plane, temporary reference vertical plane that would make, I'm doing that so I can make sure that this line is indeed converging with this one. And I'm making sure of that because I know that this is longer than this. So this little temporary plane that I've just used to help me measure things out and reference things and be accurate is a cool, helpful thing, in my opinion. And now that I'm somewhat confident with knowing that those edges and lines are behaving following the at least the main rules, I'm a lot more confident in moving forward with drawing whatever block structure that I feel like drawing in order to simplify some other more complex thing that I'm trying to draw. Cars and buildings and rooms and books and tables and heads. So I also like to just kind of come back and double check some things. This is vertical. In 3-point perspective, we're going to talk about eventually that these other up-down vertical lines won't be exactly, but for now we're just doing 2-point perspective, and it's so subtle that it helps to simplify things in this way. So all the up-downs I want to double check and make sure they're going up and down, and if anything I would want them to be angling in, and I would definitely not want them to be angling away. So make sure that they are either exactly parallel and straight up and down